Good evening. My name is Giorgos Taxidis. I'm a Fulbright grantee from Greece, studying for master's degree in fine arts at the New York Academy of Art. I've been living... Thank you. I've been living in New York now for 2 years, and it's amazing to me still how big this city is and how much it has to offer. I graduated with a degree in Fine and Applied Arts from Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in Greece. Like many of you in this room, I've been drawn to other cultures and cities, and my quest to learn has brought me to Moscow, where I received a diploma of aerography, or painting with airbrush, and also to Madrid, where I study at the UCM Facultad de Bellas Artes with the Erasmus program. People often ask me what kind of artist I am. The simplest answer is that I'm a figurative artist. I've had the good fortune to participate in many exhibitions. Just last month, I was so excited to be part of a group show at Vanita Gallery, where my work was displayed alongside masterpieces by Dalí, Picasso, Miró, and Rivera. That was completely mind-blowing. From the time I was 15, I knew that I wanted to be an artist. Quite a change from my first childhood dream of being an astronaut or pilot. But art was always my passion. I think it started with my father. He was an engineer, and he loved to draw and paint. My parents always brought us to museums and galleries. We weren't a rich family, but visiting these places and gaining knowledge was free. You only had to spend your time. My father was also very talented with his hands, and he used to construct little toys. I must have caught that spark, because play, for me, wasn't just play, but creation. Museum and gallery visits made me realize how powerful an image could be even years or centuries later. Today, I can't think or even breathe without art. It's become so much a part of me. My goal in coming here to study has not been about just getting a degree for my CV. It's always been about gaining an education to improve my artistic language and to be able to express my thoughts. When I arrived here 2 years ago, it was my first time in New York City. You can imagine what it felt like for someone who came from Drama, Greece, a city of only 40,000 people. I'm so grateful for One to World, because through them, I got to meet other Fulbright scholars from different countries: Japan, Ireland, Germany, Norway, Argentina. Having the chance to speak with them, I understand that while we might come from different cultures and backgrounds and be studying in a different field, we all have the same purpose: wanting to make the world better, to improve our way of living, and giving back to society through our knowledge. This is why I have particularly valued the One to World programs, where I have gotten to meet leaders in the fields of art, finance, and architecture. The conversation we had reinforced the goal of sharing knowledge in a cooperative, common society. Of course, I've also enjoyed the more relaxed social programs, like the Twilight Cruise around Manhattan and the Holiday Party, where I had the chance to exchange ideas and dreams with other students who I'm sure will be the next world leaders in their fields. I arrived in New York with just one suitcase, but when I go home, I know I will leave packed with memories and great experiences, thanks to all of the connections and learning opportunities that One to World has provided. Meeting tonight first honoree, Georgia Garinois Melenikiotou, was a highlight of my time here. A group of 5 students were invited to her house, and she showed us such hospitality. She even cooked for us. I remember speaking with her about how she first came here and how life wasn't always easy. She could really relate with what it's like to come to a new country and not know anyone. Georgia, who is the Executive Vice President for Corporate Marketing at the Estée Lauder companies, came to the United States as a Fulbright grantee to the MIT Sloan School of Management. Not only is Georgia also a Fulbrighter like me, but what was so amazing to me was that I could meet someone in New York who could have been my neighbor at home. Call it destiny or coincidence, but the person that I'm introducing tonight also came from the town of Drama in Greece, where I grew up. Perhaps she was always meant to grow up to appreciate intercultural connections. You see, Drama is located in the frontier areas of northeastern Greece, and Georgia remembers that as a child, from the top of the Phalakron mountain in Drama, she could look out and see both Europe and Asia. Georgia's worldview was also shaped by her family travels growing up. Her family did not have much money, but her parents made travel a priority and visited most countries in Europe in the family car with her 2 sisters. So perhaps it's not surprising that her career has been a global one. After graduating with a mechanical engineer degree with a concentration in nuclear engineering from the National Technical University of Athens, she began working at CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research in Geneva. It was just before applying for her Fulbright that she decided to switch to business. Rather than pursue a PhD in nuclear engineering, which was her plan, she became excited to see how engineering mindset and problem-solving skills could drive better solutions in everyday life and in business. As you can see, Georgia has never been afraid to take risks and follow her instincts to change fields. After receiving her MBA from MIT, she worked in finance and then in pharmaceuticals before beginning her career in the beauty industry, joining Johnson & Johnson in 1982. Over the next 26 years, she worked for the company in 7 different countries: Greece, Belgium, France, the United Kingdom, Switzerland, Italy, and the United States. In 2010, she joined Estée Lauder. This is a truly global company. Its products are sold in 150 countries, and it has 46 employees worldwide, more than the entire population of the city that we come from. Georgia believes that diversity, inclusion, and open-mindedness are fundamental to success, both in business and in her own life. And she says the other key to her success has been her biggest supporters, her husband, Philippe, who is French, and their 2 children, Laura India and Alessandro. Georgia has somehow found time outside of work and family to support other women all over the world. Over the past 25 years, she has mentored 30 young women from diverse countries who have great potential but few opportunities. Speaking to them regularly over the phone, she offers them advice, encouragement, and direction. One of her mentees, a young woman from the Philippines, used to walk 4 to 5 hours every day to get to school. And now, she's the leader of a major investment bank in Asia. I can personally attest to her accessibility and genuine desire to support young people because since I attended that dinner at her home, she has continued to reach out and connect me with people and events she thinks will be of value to me. It is my great honor to present the One to World 2019 Fulbright Award for Global Business Leadership to Georgia Garinois Melenikiotou.
All right. Thank you, Yorgos. I'm so happy to meet a Fulbright scholar from my village in New York. You pronounce my name right, so it's Melenikiotou. I had the Japanese version, Melenikiotou. I had the Russian version, Melenikiotova, so it is Melenikiotou. All right. And to my fellow Fulbright Award recipients, Erika Bertou and James Rhee, congratulations. It is an honor for me to share this with you. We're here tonight to celebrate the journeys we all take to advance Senator Fulbright's vision of peace through intercultural understanding. As for me, as you've heard from Yorgos, my own journey began very far away from here in Drama in northern Greece. I did not grow in great economic advantages, but I did have the best of two worlds. A mother that taught me and my sisters the importance of family and roots, and an ambitious father who wanted his daughters to open their minds by seeing the world. My dad inspired me to realize that financial resources are no limit in designing and driving my future. Despite our very tight finances, we took a 2-week trip to Europe every single year. By the age of 15, I have visited most European countries and cities. Those trips set me to my global local path that were marked always by these guideposts: fearlessness, curiosity, and a very deep need to belong to a village. It was fearlessness and curiosity that brought me to America as a Fulbright scholar. And I can tell you, without Fulbright, I would not be here today because I do not have the means. So thank you, Fulbright. So I came to America without speaking a word of English. And that was actually a moment of trial for me. But it was the many villages that I have built in my journey that gave me the strength to keep going. At the core of all this is the family village that Philippe, my husband, and I have built. Philippe and I have a common vision of the world. We share a vision of a diverse, inclusive, and very open world. And we have also a vision about a life that is about understanding people, and that is what put us together. So together with our son, Alessandro, and our daughter, Laura India, we have created a life that is actually quite schizophrenic. It's very global and very local. We have lived all over the world, very often in different continents from each other, but deep down, we all of us, very, very local. Not always easy, but never dull kids, right? So I'm so very grateful to all of you, to my family, and to my sister Martha that made the trip to come here tonight. Thank you, my family. Thank you. And then there are my other villages, the companies I have had the chance to work for or to serve in the board, such as the Estée Lauder, Johnson & Johnson, Bacardi, or Almiral. They all combine global ambition and family values, a mix that I have always been drawn to, and I highly recommend to all Fulbright scholars in that room. In all my private senses to them, I tell them, go for that combination. It always works. I'm so blessed and thankful to each one of those companies. Very close to my heart is another village. The many girls around the world that I have been so privileged to guide and mentor as they embark to their own journeys, helping them to become the leaders who will fearlessly embrace globalization. It is my greatest honor. Thank you to the One Toward the World community that cares about them as much as I do. As I look across this room, I'm proud that everyone in that room, all of us, we all fearlessly take our journeys and we create villages as we go. We do so with Senator Fulbright's vision in our minds and his spirit in our hearts. This award is for all of us. Thank you again.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ángela Ruz Ocaranza, and I am a Fulbright grantee from Chile studying at Columbia Law School. I'm a graduate from Universities of Chile Law School, as well as the Economics and Business School in Santiago, Chile. My hometown of Machalí is an hour south of Santiago, in an area that is quite rural. I grew up surrounded by farmlands and animals. So as you can imagine, I felt quite comfortable when I arrived in the United States for my Fulbright pre-program orientation at Kansas State University, in the middle of the heartland. The funny thing is that this was in a town called Manhattan. Of course, I soon found out that this Manhattan was nothing like the more famous one. My interest in studying abroad was sparked quite early and influenced by my parents. My father, a doctor who hates lawyers, is actively involved in the Rotary Club of my hometown. So they were always bringing international students to our home. We host many of them from different countries as I was growing up. I also had the opportunity to visit different countries throughout high school while doing something that for many years was my greatest passion, playing table tennis at a competitive level. I was very committed and driven to succeed, and I am proud to say that I became part of the table tennis national team, even participating in the 2003 World Championships. Representing my country as an athlete was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Having gotten the taste for international travel, I jumped at a chance to study for a year as an exchange student in Germany before enrolling in law school. Despite my previous travels, I found it quite challenging to adapt. The German culture, the German language, and the way of thinking were all so different than what I knew before. However, I have always been a person who rises to a challenge, and it turned out to be an incredible, enriching, and positive year. I must admit that similarly, my early days in the Big Apple were not easy at all. Actually, just 2 hours after landing in New York City and trying to walk across Times Square, I thought to myself, there's no way I'm gonna survive this year in New York. Being part of One to World has made such a difference of my time here. I first got to know them through their email newsletter, and I was impressed by the number of activities that they offer, such as international dinner with other international students, tours around neighborhoods and the city, as well as many sport events, to name just a few of them. So as you can see, I signed up for many of them. My favorite One to World program has been volunteering at a senior center in Harlem. Chatting and playing bingo with the residents and seeing how much joy we were bringing to the seniors has been one of the most fulfilling experiences of my time in New York. Sometimes we forget how easy it can be to make other people happy and how just a small gesture can have a great impact on their lives. I have also been amazed at the access that we have gotten to some of New York's most successful leaders from different fields. For example, I was at a meeting with someone that you all know now too, David Helenak, former senior advisor of Morgan Stanley. Mr. Helenak hosted a lunch for a group of students where he was very open to answer all of our questions, and he shared valuable advice for life in general with us. These were all opportunities that I will never have had without One to World. It is also through One to World that I had a chance to meet tonight's next honorees, Erica Berthoud, a senior partner with the law firm Kirkland & Ellis. Besides the fact that Erica is in the same field that I'm pursuing, I was also surprised to learn that we have had many similar life experiences. Like me, Erica grew up in a very rural area too. Although her birthplace, a small island north of Sweden, was much colder than mine, of course. At some point of our lives, we both wanted to become professional athletes. And here we are, a tax and an investment fund lawyer. For Erica, her dream was to become an equestrian. I believe that through sport, we both learn responsibility and discipline, perseverance and teamwork, and many other skills that I'm sure help Erica in one way or another to be here tonight. Erica hasn't given up her love for competitive riding, though in New York City, you are going to see her on a bicycle instead of a horse. In fact, Erica is so dedicated to this sport that she is a member of the board of directors of the USA Cycling Foundation. But that's not all. Her other extreme sports challenges have included a 100-kilometer 19-hour adventure race through the Borneo jungle in 2011. That's very impressive. Where she finished second among the women racers. I think she deserved that. After graduating from Stockholm University, she too, like me, went abroad to pursue her studies, going on to receive degrees from King's College London and the New York University School of Law. Erica began her law career as a tax attorney in Sweden. Then, during a consortium meeting, she was noticed by a team at Debevoise and Plimpton and recruited to join the firm here in New York. Now, a senior partner at Kirkland & Ellis, which she joined in December 2017, Erica is widely recognized as one of the country's leading attorneys in the field of private investment fund formation. After meeting Erica, I said to myself, we have a lot in common. I wish someday I could be like her, a successful lawyer, an opinion leader, a dedicated mother, and a true global citizen. So you can imagine how privileged I feel to be the one to introduce her tonight. Erica moves seamlessly across borders and cultures, traveling often for work to Latin America, Europe, and Hong Kong, from her home base here in New York, where she lives with her 2 sons and her husband. She credits her husband, Nasmi, with introducing her to the world. He is from Zimbabwe, of Indian descent, and their extended family spans the globe. They have relatives in India, Hong Kong, the United States, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Turkey, and Sweden. Erika has spoken about the significant and challenging cultural adjustment she had to make upon moving to the United States from Sweden 16 years ago, in order to navigate not only in the new language, but also the different social conventions of this country. For myself and for my fellow international students, her commitment to dealing with these challenges with humor and openness, while retaining her own individuality and cultural identity, sets an example for all of us. It is my absolute pleasure to present the One to World 2019 Fulbright Award for Global Citizenship to Erika Berthoud.
Thank you so much, Angela. I don't know about you. I still haven't given up the dream of being a professional athlete because I have yet to be as successful as Angela. So thank you, One to World, the Fulbright organization, and everybody for coming here tonight and making the contributions. I don't really have any prepared notes because I decided just to come here to be inspired and speak from my heart. And I feel incredibly inspired by hearing these stories from so many international students, really just all made up of dreams. I come from a really small town up north in Sweden, and I guess I always fancied myself as a small town girl. I went to London, decided London was too big. I went to Luxembourg. I actually have some Luxembourg council here tonight. Decided that was too big. Well, they do have a very, very good kebab place there in Luxembourg, which is my favorite part. Moved back to Sweden, but again, my husband Nasmi from Zimbabwe is clearly an international man, and he, as Angela said, introduced me to the world. And for various reasons, we decided to move to New York. And I don't know if it was a stroke of genius or sheer insanity to make us do this. But, you know, you have these magic moments in life, and those of you that know me well have heard this story before, so just bear with me one more time. But one of those magic moments is when Nasmi and I were sit on a plane, and he takes my hand, and we're sort of going in for landing. We can see the Manhattan skyline. And he says, you know, honey, we just sold everything we own, and we don't really have a lot of money. And, you know, we're moving to New York, and I realized we've actually never been to New York. So we didn't have a place to stay in the beginning. I had to study at NYU to sit for the bar. I had sort of my work offer, but it was a little bit of a journey to be able to start practicing here in New York. So we took in, I think it was Holiday Inn in Chinatown, undergoing construction. And similar to Angela's moment, walking across the street in Times Square, I was like, oh my God, I will never survive this city. But we did, and it's been 17 amazing years in New York. Having kids in a place like this just, you know, grounds you to the city, although it is an interesting experience raising two young sons in New York City. It's it's hard to keep them, really young. Although I do my best. So really, I hope that my journey has inspired all of the Fulbright scholars, students, in the way you have inspired me tonight and hearing your stories before this. And I guess never give up on your dreams. And don't count me out on that big athletic prize. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kuluina Andriambulasson, and I am a Fulbright student from Madagascar. I'm studying for an MPA in Public and Nonprofit Management and Policy at the NYU Robert F. Wagner School of Public Service, and I'm specializing in international policy. Before coming here, I worked with Teach for Madagascar, a community-based organization which serves underprivileged children and youth and runs programs ranging from basic literacy education and reading support to youth mentoring. I started out as a volunteer teacher and then supervised the high school mentoring and training project. I also initiated and developed an exchange project between high school girls in rural and in urban areas, which I was in charge of for 2 years before I left the country. My studies here will help me learn how to better support organizations like these back home. Specifically, I want to support impact evaluation efforts and contribute to identifying, improving, and scaling up effective projects. I am particularly interested in addressing issues that relate to women's economic empowerment, matters of participation and social advancement in the context of international development and globalization. I wasn't always interested in a nonprofit sector. Initially, I studied business management. But my turning point came about 5 years ago when my mom passed away. She had always been a volunteer, doing community service and trying to help people improve their lives. I decided I would take up this path as a way to live her legacy. My mom was a single parent. She raised my 2 younger brothers and me. We struggled sometimes, but she gave us a good life. In fact, she did such a good job that even though I grew up in one of the poorest and most dangerous neighborhoods, I felt that we lived in a bubble. We knew about the poverty around us, but we did not experience it directly. Still, I knew that studying hard and getting an education was the only way out for me. I had a couple friends who had been Fulbright scholars, and I felt that getting a Fulbright scholarship was the ticket to realize my dreams. When I landed in New York, it was my first time in America. I felt like I had gone to another planet. The first few months were terrible. But then I found one toward. I went to a social event they organized at the beginning of the semester, and that led me to signing up as a volunteer for their Global Classroom program. I'm so glad that Mr. Helenek asked for his support tonight for Global Classroom. I can tell you from my personal experience that this is an amazing program. I have led workshops with 3rd and 4th graders in Queens and middle school students and 3rd graders in Manhattan. And I tell them about my country, and nearly always, I'm the first person from Madagascar that these children have ever met. I think that probably I will also be the only person from Madagascar that they will ever meet. But I'm always impressed at their ability to find similarities and connections between their culture and mine. My favorite moment was when 3rd grade students were learning a traditional Malagasy dance and enjoyed it so much they wanted to keep doing it after the class ended. Being a Fulbrighter in New York and participating in One to World programs has not just allowed me to continue my education, it has also opened so many doors for me. I have made connections with many experts and practitioners in the nonprofit field that I would have never met otherwise. I will even be able to intern at the World Bank. Being able to access these opportunities really matters because it gives me the confidence and the skills to contribute in shaping the way the world works, especially coming from a country that is barely represented on a global stage. One2Word has given me the chance not only to interact with people from very diverse backgrounds, but also to increase understanding of my own country and my culture. I'm proud and humbled to be part of a community of people who care about bringing cultures and people together and promoting cultural exchange and understanding. Tonight's final honoree is wholly committed to this goal as well. James Rhee, the chairman and CEO of Ashley Stewart, has spent his life bridging peoples, cultures, and industries. James grew up the son of Korean immigrant parents in a community on Long Island with very little racial diversity. He describes the painful experience of watching his mother face ridicule as she struggled with English in her new home. This, combined with the example of his pediatrician father, who spent his life caring for children and never turned away anyone because they couldn't pay him, instilled in James a lifelong commitment to advocating for the underdog and the undervalued. He has also always been a voracious learner, with a talent for sharing what he's learned with others. He graduated from Harvard College, where he studied abroad at Oxford, and then spent the summer traveling through Austria, while writing for a travel guidebook. He decided to become a high school teacher because he wanted to encourage underachieving kids to go to college too. Then, he decided he could make even more of a difference by becoming a public defender. So he went to Harvard Law School, where he graduated with honors. But while in law school, he came to see that money, something he was never taught to value much growing up, was in fact a very powerful force in the world, and he wanted to know how to wield it for the greater good. So, fresh out of law school, he became the first non-traditional hire at Merrill Lynch's Mergers and Acquisitions Group in Boston. As you can see, like our other honorees tonight, James is not afraid of taking risks and seeking out new opportunities. Perhaps his greatest risk came in 2013, when he decided to take on the role of CEO of Ashley Stewart, a women's plus-size fashion brand with deep roots in the African American community. On the verge of its second bankruptcy in 3 years, it was heading toward liquidation. But James saw enormous potential in the company, whose stores were part of the fabric of their communities. And he believed its customers deserved one last chance. You see, he felt great empathy for the women who shopped there because they reminded him of his mother, women who were undervalued but who deserved respect and to be seen. James brought his heart, as well as, of course, his business expertise, to this unlikely mission of saving Ashley Stewart. 6 years later, the company is thriving and is a leader in its industry. He is still passionate about teaching and has led courses at Cambridge University for business executives. He mentored Brazilian women business owners through Sebrae, and he's a visiting lecturer at Duke Law School. Despite his busy schedule, he is deeply committed to his family and spending time with his 3 children. It is my true pleasure to present the One2Word 2019 Fulbright Award for Intercultural Education and Understanding to James Rhee.
Thanks, Kaloina. Do you have that picture up? I have, for one, officially resigned myself that I'm never going to be a professional athlete, Erica, so it's over. So I'm going to say some thank yous and maybe just tell you a little bit of a story as well. That's my grandmother, and it's one of the few times she came to visit us in the US. And her name, I don't think has ever been spoken in this country, because I've always just called her Halmoni, which means grandmother in Korean. So her name was So Nyo Sung, and she was born in 1920, and she passed away in 2012. And this woman, without a high school education, lost her husband during the Korean War, and we still don't know what happened to him. He went out one day, and the North Koreans invaded Korea, and he never came home. So this woman without a high school education, as a single mom in a pretty paternalistic war-torn Korea, raised 4 children by herself. I don't know how she did it, but she put all 4 of them through college by herself. And I think about her a lot. And her third child was my mother, and my mother met this young man from Seoul National University with a medical degree and $400 in his pocket, and they both came over here. And they didn't have enough money to come themselves, and my mother was pregnant, so my dad came first, mom stayed, had my older brother, and then 5 years later, my brother came, and my mother came, and my grandmother raised my brother for 5 years. They didn't know they were gonna make it in this country, so they didn't wanna disrupt my brother's life. So that's my life. I'm a middle child, but frankly, first son in this country. And in many ways, I've been my parents' and my family's one to the United States, if that makes sense. Translating this country for my family, defending my family, particularly my mother. And it's been my life, as I think about it, kind of naive at times. I've always looked at the best in people, and I view life as one big school. You know, I've private equity, I've managed billions of dollars, I've taught high school, I'm running now a fashion business for predominantly black women, and you know, I've always been sort of like a little bit of an other, as you saw from that picture. It was pretty stark to see that picture, but that was my upbringing growing up, kind of being always the only. And you know, in Germany, and they would look at me and say, well, your German's pretty good. Are you from where? Your English is good. Whoa. Right? And then when I went to Korea to study in Korea, my Korean's not great. So they said, huh, you can't speak Korean and you're Korean. That's interesting. And you know, I'm on the board of the National Retail Federation. I'm the only one private equity guy on that board. And you know, Seiku's here, who runs Advancing Black Pathways for JP Morgan. And just from the name itself, you know, I'm not black. and I'm not famous. And you know, to be on that board was a very significant moment in my life because it represented a lot of things that, you know, I've lived through. And, you know, throughout all of these things, kind of being only, and then, you know, Buck, we've both broke out of Harvard Law School, and Goldman and Merrill, and, you know, I remember walking into that world and saying, I'm your new boss, and I don't know how to use Excel, so who's going to teach me? And it's been just living my world like that and kind of just smiling and saying, you know, please teach me. I would love to learn. But during all of these moments, I've never felt lonely. And a lot of it's because of my parents and my friends. And I've always brought my friends and my parents, and I would accumulate friends and new relationships, and I bring them with me to every new country situation I come with. And I look at this table here, and it brings me so much joy to live a life like this. And it leads me to this, is that 6 years ago, yeah, I went somewhere else, except it was in this country. I shut down my life in Boston, and you know, my parents didn't quite understand what was going on, but when they did, they understood, and they cried. But there was a group of women in this country who I call Ashley Stewart. It's predominantly African-American customer base. It's one of the largest and oldest, if not the largest and oldest, business focused on black women in the history of this country. And this business was treated metaphorically, unfortunately, how often this woman is treated. And she needed a friend. And it may look unlikely friend, and in the beginning, maybe it was unlikely, but if you get to know me, maybe I was the most likely person. And together, me and predominantly African American employee base and customer base, we fought for the survival and then the thriving of something that I felt was just. It was a safe place for her. It was one of her only places where she wasn't discriminated against and she was treated respectfully. And it reminded me of my mother. Like every now and then when she was able to speak Korean, and she was just a different person. And I could see the same necklines, the same posture change. And it reminded me of my grandmother. And I know that today, if my grandmother was still alive, I think that the Ashley Stewart women would really love my grandmother. I think they have a lot more in common than, I know that they have a lot in common. So, with that, I have one more thing to say to the Fulbright, the students here, which, I teach a lot. I teach at Duke and I teach at companies about money, life, and happiness. How do you maximize joy and wealth at the same time? And it's been a great thrill to be able to tell the Ashley Stewart world. The story, you want to talk about one to world, telling the Ashley Stewart her story and being entrusted to tell that story to some of the world's largest and most prestigious institutions and business institutions, and people are listening to what she has to say. And I take that responsibility very seriously. But to the students, the thing I would tell you is this, don't mistake credentials and power and money and honors for anything that they're not. Like, I would just keep focusing. Don't mistake them for transcendent values like integrity and kindness and compassion and humanity, and use what you're learning. And yeah, using commerce to affect what you can affect is sometimes very efficient. But never forget that what you're really learning is the ability to affect change for those that are not in a position to stand up for themselves. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Before we wrap up tonight, I just want to say how touched and inspired I have been by all the speeches tonight, both from the Fulbright students who I have known and have come to love, but also from our honorees. I thank you very much for your participation tonight. It means a world to us. So, as we come to the end of our evening, I just want to thank you all for being here, being part of this evening and being part of One to World and the Fulbright program. I'd also like to remind you, David, I'm going to ask you to come on up, because, you know that Minnesotans just want to be Canadians. We actually call Minnesota Southern Canada.
I'd just like to say to James that he is right. People can embrace very different people and even appear on the same stage with a Canadian.
Thank you. So, as David had mentioned earlier, I do want to remind you about the pledge cards on your tables this evening. As you've heard throughout the evening, the programs that we do make a real, excellent. Make a real difference in the lives of the young people, whether it's the international students and scholars that are with us for a time or the K-12 students that we touch through our global classroom program. So I do encourage you to take a look at those. There's that online component that David doesn't understand, that QR code it's called actually. So David, I don't know if you know this, but part of the reason I'm actually here tonight was that 4 years ago, when we had some global classroom students address this dinner, I was actually volunteering, I was at the Reg desk. I was so inspired by the global classroom stories that night that I actually made a gift that night. I became a donor for the first time. And one thing led to another, and I'm the executive director of this incredible organization now. So, who knows, if you want to make a donation tonight, in a few years, you might find yourself right up here. So, again, you're most welcome to make a pledge for anything that's there, but we do thank you very much just for being here and being part of this evening. And I wanted to thank everyone who believes in our work and is helping to make it possible. It means so much to us and the students that we serve. Now, just a couple of housekeeping things. Voters' gifts. The voters' books that are on your tables. Please feel free to take them with you. And we actually have a thing that we do every year. It's an award. We would do a door prize drawing, and I'm actually going to ask David to help me do this. Entertain them while I go get the bowl.
Would you like me to sing? No, you don't want that. Believe me, you don't. No.
I would love to challenge that. Okay, so this is actually for a case of eco-friendly biodynamic wine that is actually donated by a former honoree of ours, Kevin Parker, and Chateau Marie. So I'm actually going to ask David to draw the name. The only rule is you must be here to win. So if you hear your name, or when you hear your name, let us know that you're here and come on down and give us some information. Okay, David? Oh.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead. So, the winner of the award-winning wine from Chateau Marie is
Douglas Stallings.
Is Doug still here? Because if he left early, he's out of luck.
I think he may be here.
Doug, are you there? Okay, you got it. We got you. Okay, so stay with me. You want to say anything before we go?
No.
Okay. So thank you all again for joining us tonight. And I do hope to see each one of you back here next year because it is actually going to be the 30th anniversary of the One to World Fulbright Awards dinner. So we hope we can join you. Thank you.
Great evening.